I don't know about that. I'm over here watching them speak, trying to make sure that I get the timing of this microphone down, because I hate listening to myself, you know. But anyway, I also want to thank the Shenandoah County Fair Association and all the veterans for being here today and giving me the opportunity to speak. I thought about this a long time since I was asked to come and speak today, and I wanted to take two different conversations from two different people that I've had relationships with and try to tie those two together for you today. So if you'll give me just a few minutes, I want to tell you about a couple of conversations that I had. The first involves a kid by the name of O'Dane Dodd. I met O'Dane the first time I met him. We have a leadership camp out at Shrine Month that we do each summer. And gosh, I don't know, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I first met him. He's a tall, kind of a goofy kid. And he kept coming back because we kept asking him to come back because we saw his leadership potential. And eventually he became one of our senior counselors at the camp. This is a leadership camp. And this summer, was his last camp with us. And I found out that he had enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. So as we speak, he's serving our country right now, going through his basic training. And the last conversation I had with him was basically this. I told him, I said, O'Dane, I've served, many people have served, and these people know that what you're going through right now. In other words, they know that you're going to a place that you don't know anybody. You don't know when your next hot shower is going to be. You don't know where you're going to be sleeping. You don't know whether you'll come home, when you'll come home, or whether you'll come home. But it's a sacrifice that each of these people have made before you. And it's a sacrifice that you're getting ready to make. And I told him that no matter where you go after you leave Woodstock, that there are people here that love you, that will be praying for you, and that really do appreciate the service that you're giving to them and to our country. Now think about what I'm telling him. I'm telling him that it's not all about him. It's about his service. It's about our country. But yet, and by the way, because we're veterans, we all believe that, and we all know that. But O'Dane is in a world right now that he is surrounded, some might even say he's submersed, in a world where it is all about me. I mean, think about what we have today that we didn't have. I know we didn't have it when I went into the service. The social media platforms that we have today, it's not just one, it's many. And if you pay attention to these things, you realize that a lot of it is based on activity, how many likes you get, how many friends you have, how outrageous it might be, what's trending at the time. That's the world that O'Dane lives in right now. And it's tough. If you notice, you have very little of traditional media anymore. What you have now is you have people that, it's like they have their own television station. They're their own news commentator. They've got their own editorial board. And you see that every day, many times a day. And if you understand the system, you understand that the metrics of that system are that the more outrageous it is, the more that it trends, the more people notice it. It is a system, my friends, that it is all about me. This is all about me. How much attention can I get? Who's going to like me? Who's going to pay attention to me? Well, there went my notes, so I guess I better practice it. If you see what I see, this also permeates into our political system. You know, politicians are not immune from a world where it's all about me. They are surrounded by people, their staff, bureaucrats, their advisors, and those people are also driving them to the point where it's about how much activity they have, what their footprint is out on social media. Okay. I stayed on task. Look at there. And if you think about this for a moment, these politicians are the people that provide the funding to take care of homeless veterans, to take care of veterans that have mental health or behavioral health issues. They're the ones that provide the ballistic protection for law enforcement. They're the ones that provide the funding for emergency medical equipment. That's what they do. But yet, they're surrounded by people who encourage them to be, it's all about me. One of the things that I've done, and one of the things that I would encourage you all to do, is I've been in the Virginia Sheriff's Association for the last 20 years. One of the committees that I ask to be on each year is our legislative committee. And I got to tell you guys something. When you pick up the phone and you talk to your elected official about an issue, I can't tell you how much weight that carries. And you should get engaged in that. And because we're people that understand that it's not all about me, that's important. It's important to kids like O'Dane. It's important to veteran services. It's important to your first responders and the equipment that they get. Picking up the phone and calling those people and telling them what your position is on policy. I'll pick up the phone whether they'll listen to me or not, but I'm going to pick up the phone and tell them what I think. And I would encourage you all to do the same thing. There's another guy that I want to tell you about as I close. And he's a friend of mine that I met many years ago. His name was Doug Mowry Sr. Now, some of you may know or have known Doug. Doug was a successful businessman in Strasburg. And the way I met him was through Woodstock Rotary. I belong to Woodstock Rotary. Doug belongs to Strasburg Rotary. And I would go to Strasburg, and from time to time, when I went, I always made a point to sit with Doug. He's one of those people where the more you're around him, the more you like being around him. That's the kind of guy he was. He wasn't a big guy in stature. He was a small guy. He was very involved in his community, very involved in his church. He had a family. But the other thing about Doug is that I need to say, I would call Doug, I call him an old school Democrat, okay? And the way I came through to the system, you would probably refer to me as a Reagan Republican, okay? But we would sit there, we would talk about the community, talk about the weather, talk about sports, but we'd always end up talking about local issues, and it was always cordial. There were never any arguments, and there were never any hard feelings. Doug was also a veteran. Doug served in World War II. I talked to him a few times about his service, and I remember one time he told me, he said, you know, Tim, I was lucky. I was serving on a ship, and a lot of those boys didn't come home. I got to come home, and I got to get back. And he did that. I went to see Doug, let's see, I guess it was in the spring of 2004. And he had become ill, and like many of us, it'll happen to us. He was in a hospital bed there in his home, and I went to see him in his home. And as we talked, again, the conversation started to go to politics, as it always did. And at the time in Strasburg, there was some tumultuousness going on with council seats. They had their elections back then for town council in spring. A lot of turmoil with some of that was going on, and I didn't quite understand it, but of course I got his opinion on it. And he told me who he thought was going to win in those elections and who he wanted to win in those elections. And he thought what the issues were regarding the tumultuousness. And as we were talking, he paused for a minute and he looked at me and he said, well, hey, Sheriff, it looked like it worked out good for you. And I said, yeah, Doug. I said, you know, but I got to tell you something, man. He was talking about the election for sheriff, my first term in 2003. And I said, Doug, that was the hardest thing that I've ever done. I don't think I could do that again. And he didn't even blink. And he looked right at me and he said, Tim, it was supposed to be. You see, Doug Mowry understood, like you all understand, it's not all about me. Okay? It's about the service that we provided, the sacrifice that you've provided to this country, to your community. Even though we're living in that world where we're surrounded by it's all about me, we have people like Doug Mowry Sr., Odane Dodd, and you that are willing to give back and are willing to sacrifice time from your family, time from your community, and time in your life to serve your country. So for that, I just want to say thank you to you for your service. I want to thank Doug Mowry and his family for his service. And also, I ask that you keep Odane in your prayers as he goes through his service. With that, thank you all. God bless you. God bless the United States.